Tilder!
What is this? This is the Forza 60. How much does it cost? Its current promotional price is $220. After that, it's going to be $290. It's a 60-watt cob LED. You can turn the fans off for silent operation, can operate on 2 Sony NPF batteries from 1.5 hours to 3.5 hours. Do I recommend it? Yes and no, because it's really going to depend on where you are in your filmmaking journey.
Done. Roll that intro.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the Nanlite Forza 60 is going to be the right solution for you and your overall lighting kit. I want to thank Nanlite for sending this out to me so I can provide you with my review today. Now, I actually saw this Nanlite Forza series back at NAB last year, so it's really cool that it's finally entering the market and we can see what this thing can actually do. Now, I know some of you guys are going to look at this and say this looks very similar to the Sokani x60 in terms of what it's able to do, and while they are similar, they are different at the same time, and we're going to talk about that towards the bottom line. Now, Nanlite is actually running a promotion until June 1st, so you can actually get this light for $220, and once you pass the promotion period, we're going to look at the MSRP of approximately $290. But for that price, you're going to get everything in a nice little carrying case kit. You're going to get yourself the light, the AC adapter, and a reflector, of course. This is a 60-watt light, which is actually quite good for most general cases, but when you compare it against its older brothers, the Forza 300 and the Forza 500, the Forza 60 is essentially kind of like a supplement light if you're going to buy this all in a kit. One very interesting feature about the Forza 60 that the Sokani does not have is the fact that you can actually turn off the fan if you want to. Now, when you turn off the fan, you are going to take a light output decrease, approximately 1.5 stops, I think. But if you are in those critical situations where you do need to have total silence, because maybe you have that light pretty close with a big softbox getting that nice soft light, if you're doing that and you know the shotgun microphone is nearby, then turn off the fan. If you can still get the same exposure, then you don't have to worry about the fan getting in the way of your audio. Now, another cool accessory that you can purchase separately with the Forza 60 is a battery grip. This battery grip takes 2 Sony NPF batteries, which is awesome because most of us probably have a couple of those lying around. And basically it attaches on, the grip can even attach onto a light stand. And from there, you can either use it on the light stand or you can take it off and roam around with it. If you saw my Neewer bicolored softbox video, I actually talked about why you would want to do something like this, specifically referencing Black Panther Casino one-take fight scene. If you look at the behind the scenes, you'll literally see a person following the camera crew holding a soft light at Chadwick Boseman. So every time he turns around, not only is he going to get that eye light, but he's also going to be lit and not be darkened by the light that's going around. So you can essentially do this with your own softboxes as well, which leads into the next accessory that I would recommend. So the Forza 60 has its own proprietary Bowens mount, and that is meant for their specifically designed softboxes and light modifiers for the Forza 60. But I would actually suggest just go ahead and get the Bowens adapter so that you can convert it to a regular Bowens, and therefore from there you can use the Bowens light adapters that you already have. One quick note about it though, it can't handle a softbox bigger than 35 inches because I tried to use the Laofa's 47-inch softbox that I have, and while it will initially hold, if you bump the light and the softbox kind of bounces for a second, it will lose traction and tension and eventually fall down. That is a little design flaw, but at the same time, I don't think most people are supposed to use a 47-inch softbox with it. So just letting you know that that is a limitation of the Bowens adapter. All right, guys, so let's go to the light output tests. I'm going to show you tests where we're going to have the fan on, fan off, the reflector on with the reflector fan off as well. And then we're going to compare it against the Sokani in terms of overall light output and as well as to see if there's a color rendition difference. So here we have the Forza 60 with the fan on and fan off test, as well as how well it does with the included reflector. And here we have the Forza 60 going up against the Sokani x60 version 2. In terms of maximum output for the Forza, we have the fan on for this comparison. Now let's take a look at how the Forza and Sokani go against each other in a color chart test with the GH5 set at 5600K, no custom white balance. When we put them into this situation, the Sokani actually has a shift off towards magenta and blue, as you can see by the white blob there not being in the center. The Forza is actually much closer to the center natively, which is great, and even so, the skin chips are pretty much right on the line, a little slightly off to yellow, but not that bad. So when it comes to the LED chips being used, the Forza 60 is much more color accurate natively. For the battery grip test using two large Sony NPF batteries, I was getting about 1.5 hours with the fan on, and I was getting about 3.5 hours with the fan off, which is really not that bad. So for this test, I wanted to see just how well the Forza 60 could act as a key light with its proprietary 22-inch softbox and my 47-inch Lalfast softbox. Now the kicker here is that I purposely turned the fan off so that I have a light output hit, and the softbox is approximately 3.5 feet away from me. And as you can see here, my GH5 settings are not crazy. They're at ISO 400, 1/60th the shutter speed, and depending on which combination I was using, I was hovering between f5 and f4. So if you have the 2.8 standard zoom, you're pretty much good to go there. And if you're shooting with the 1.7 primes that these Micro Four Thirds systems have, you'll pretty much be good there as well. Now I am in a controlled lighting situation with me pulling the blinds down in the kitchen, but there was still some ambient light coming through. But even then, the light does pretty well. All right, let's break down a little bit of that short that I showed in the very beginning. So basically I have the Forza 60, it's got the Bowens adapter on it, and then I'm using the 47-inch softbox. It's at 100% so that I can simulate kind of the moonlight going through a very large window up in the attic. Now, the light itself is approximately 12 to 15 feet away from where I was sitting, so you kind of get an idea of how powerful it actually is. And you'll be surprised to know that my camera settings weren't necessarily crazy. My ISO was at 400 on my GH5, and I was using my Shure 50mm anamorphic lens at f1.8 wide open. So my ISO wasn't jacked up at all. I probably could have gone to like 640 a little bit, but for me, I kind of liked the look at 400. So that's where I was. So the light is powerful enough for those kind of moody scenes. And you can imagine that if the softbox was even closer to me, that yes, I can get even higher exposure, because we're pretty much going to talk about this now in the bottom line of whether or not the Forza 60 is something you should be looking into. So the major question is, should you get the Sokani x60 or should you get the Nanlite Forza 60, because they more or less play in the same arena at different price points. So basically, it's really going to depend on two things in my mind. Number one, where are you in your filmmaking journey in terms of experience and ability? And then two, what is your budget going in and going out? So basically, if you're a beginning filmmaker, and you're starting to get your experience, you might have a little bit of money coming in from doing these little video projects, or maybe you're starting your YouTube channel, what have you. At this point in time, I would say you need to save your money. You need to develop more content to show what you can really do. So I would say go with the Sokani x60 if you fit into that category. Now, if you are a working videographer or filmmaker, constantly working, the money that you're making that's coming in regularly is specifically from your video work. At that point in time, there's probably going to be a moment where you're looking like, I'm going to upgrade my old LED panels that I've been using, their budget, and I have these softboxes that use LED light bulbs. I would love to have something that's like a cob LED with a softbox instead and more portable. At that point in time, when you're at that level and you want to finally upgrade your gear, that's when you start looking at a company like Nanlite, because Nanlite makes a whole bunch of other lighting equipment. They don't just make the Forza series. They have tube lights, they have LED panels, they have the whole gamut. And I was actually surprised to find out that they actually have a US company that handles the warranty claims when you buy it from an authorized USA seller. So there's something to be said about having a 2-year warranty and a 3-year warranty if you register the product that's handled in the United States specifically, because if you're a working professional, if something goes wrong, you're going to want it handled here. With a budget company that's just rebranding certain things, sometimes you might actually be able to have a website that handles everything, and they do have somebody somewhere that's actually going to handle your warranty claims, but there's a good chance that that might not be there. Now, the second question is 60 watts actually going to be enough for your needs? So I showed you a narrative example with a moody scene shooting a 60 watt light through a huge softbox. So in that specific case, it was acting as my key light, and it did exactly what I wanted to do. This is a question that is really, really dependent on your knowledge of how you're going to maneuver your camera settings, maneuver the light, and what is it that you're actually going for the overall look. Because most people would say a 60 watt light is not enough for a key light, but in that specific case, with how I designed the scene for it, it worked. It did exactly what I needed it to do. Now, also remember that the light was approximately 12 to 15 feet away shooting through a softbox. So if I was doing something like this, a standard kind of interview shot, if you will, if I was looking this way and talking to somebody, having a 47-inch thing, I don't know, let's say 8 feet away, 6 to 8 feet away, that's going to be much brighter and it's going to work. But remember, the shots that you saw were at ISO 400 at f1.8 on a GH5. That's not known for good low light performance. But again, if that's the case, having something that close, you're going to be able to use it as a key light in that situation, especially if you have control of the lighting around you. So in the YouTube studio here right now, my little office, I purposely have the blinds put down, and I've even put some cardboard over there to block the sunlight from coming in. When you're in these situations, yes, the 60 is going to be good enough because it does allow you to craft the overall look. But if you're going to be fighting sunlight, probably not. You're going to want to go with something much bigger like its older brother, the Forza 300 and the Forza 500. So when it comes to that, the Forza 60 is going to work for well-crafted scenes and your understanding of your camera settings. And I'm going to talk about that eventually, finally, in a video to kind of give you guys an idea of how that balancing act actually works. But if you're looking at the Forza 60 in terms of, is it something you should be thinking about in an overall kit? Yes, because from a narrative perspective and even a corporate perspective, the Forza 60 is a supplementary light to the 300 and 500. You're probably going to use the 300 and 500 to be your principal lighting kit. And then the Forza 60 is going to be your wild card, whether it's going to be a hair light when you put a reflector on it, maybe it's a little fill light, or again, on a narrative set. I'm kind of the DP that does not want to set up the lighting for the wide shot, then tear it down and move it closer for the close-up shots, and then move it in even closer and design again for the even closer up shots. I don't want to do that. I'm the kind of DP that would try to see, can I actually light the entire scene one way and then have a couple little lights that are tweaked, moved, to get that hair light, to get that fill light, so the camera guys can actually just have free range within the scene. That's where the Forza 60 is going to come in. You're going to use the 300 and the 500 to start crafting the overall scene, whether it's shooting from the outside through the windows, bouncing it off the ceiling, using other light modifiers, and then when the camera guys are like, okay, I want to set up here, they set up the shot. And at that point, you look at the scene, you go, it's missing a little something. That's where the Forza 60 can come in find a place where it's not going to get in the way. You can battery power it, or you can have a wire running to it, set up the thing, let the actors do their shot. Okay, cool. Now the camera guys want to move over here, and they're like, okay, no problem, because the larger lights are far back and they're out of the way, creating the overall lighting scene. And then again, you just move that Forza 60 somewhere to give the scene a little bit extra dynamic. So from a narrative standpoint, looking at the Forza 60 from a larger perspective, that's how I would use it. But let's say you are a YouTuber. Let's say you're just doing content at home. In which case, yes, the Forza 60 is going to be more than enough for how you're going to be using in your little home office. You can get yourself some softboxes. You can use whatever it is you want to use through that, through the Bowens mount. And of course, depending on your setup, you can turn off that fan as well and be able to get something that's using a cob LED, but not producing any noise. So the last thing I want to talk about is whether or not the Forza 60 proprietary light modifiers, the Fresnel lens and the softbox, if those are actually worth it, or should you just get the regular Bowens adapter and use those versions instead? From a budget standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me to invest in that, especially when you can only use it on the Forza 60. I would rather just get the Bowens adapter, use the regular Bowens stuff. So when I invest into a Forza 300, a Forza 500, I can still use the same softbox and light modifiers across the board. Now, I do realize that there are people out there that would really just want to get everything that's proprietary and buy everything that's meant for each other. But for me, I want to save a little bit money because really the light is what I want. The accessories is not what defines the light for me. It's really the light itself. So for me, I would say just go ahead and get the Bowens adapter and then use your own Bowens light modifiers with it. Again, you need to keep in mind that this specific light adapter was made for a softbox up to 35 inches. If you go even more than that, it's going to break down. Of course, if you're going to be using something like like a Fresnel lens, you really have to take a look at how it's built. Now, the Fresnel lens might actually be okay because it's a little bit more compact together, whereas the Bowens is shooting out quite a bit away. But I'm not necessarily sure if the adapter is going to be able to hold, depending on how big and how heavy your Fresnel lens attachment actually is. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check on my affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.